Alan Rowland again. You never can tell what our subject will be when we make a YouTube presentation, but today this is going to be something a little bit different than you're probably accustomed to. I want to talk to you about birds. Honestly, backyard birds in Jasper, Alabama, in Walker County, Alabama. And I'm going to tell you, I've always had an interest in birds. Yeah, my mother got me interested in it when I was probably 6 or 7 years of age. She was not an expert birder, but she had an interest in it. And my dad would take bird feeders up, place them out in the yard, and then my mother would talk about the various chickadees and titmouse and cardinals and whatever that came to the feeder. And she got my interest in it. And then it kind of dropped away, and I didn't pick it up again until like 20 years later. I was about age 25 at that time, and I was in a graduate course at the University of Montevallo and taking a course in ornithology under Dr. Eugene Sledge. And that spurred my appetite for birds, and I've been interested in that for the next 50 years. And I do birding every day. It's a great activity, and that's what we call it, birding. I don't call it bird watching by any means, but I do it every day, you know, whether I'm conscious of it or whether I'm not. Even when I'm out doing my walks or out in the woods, I'm just always seeing those birds that are around me. Even when I have my breakfast, I always eat breakfast in my kitchen, looking out the window, standing up and looking out at my feeders and watching the birds that are outside. It's just very, very entertaining. And I promise you, if you develop birding as a hobby, you'll never be bored for the remainder of your life. You honestly will. So let's go, So let's go to our narrative camera here, and again, this is a title, The Backyard Birds in Jasper, Alabama. And what I'm going to be using for this is a very, very simple guide. My mother gave this to me when I was about 8, 9, maybe even younger than that. I don't even think they make this book anymore. It's called A Golden Guide to Birds. It is authored by Herbert Zim, Ira Gabrielson, and the artist here. And very simple illustrations, but it works well for us, James Gordon Irving. All right, now you can use more complicated guides. Excuse me. And I use this one regularly. Actually, I don't use guides very much, but I like to reference it every now and then. This is Roger Torrey Peterson's Field Guide to Birds. Very good. Many editions of this. I've got a number of these editions date back to the 50s. But anyway, I like to use this, but there are many others that you can use. And some of the equipment that you will probably be interested in, and you may not be. You need a set of field glasses. I'm calling them here binoculars. And you can use them or you cannot. Sometimes I do, sometimes I do not. I use rather expensive field glasses, but you don't have to do that. You can get some that are less quality, and probably as a beginning birder, that's the way that you should go. And let's see what else you need. You need to have something that you feed the birds with. I always use cracked corn. I didn't bring out an illustration of that. You probably know what cracked corn is. Excuse me. And I do not use bird seed itself. I don't like to use bird seed. If you put it in a feeder, it has a tendency to form a fungus on it, and this can be detrimental to the health of the birds. I also use sunflower seeds and a feeder. And here's what I'm talking about here. Sunflower seeds. Use that, and it, of course, will collect water after a rain. You need to empty the water out. But my best for bird feeder is what you're seeing right here. It's just a section of the ground. And this is in my backyard, and that's where I scatter my cracked corn. And this is probably 30 feet away from my kitchen window, and my little birds there will just gather all around this area here, particularly in the winter months of the year, and give you a lot of pleasure in watching them. During the summer months, spring and summer months, in late March, you want to put out your hummingbird feeders. We only have one type of hummingbird here in Alabama on a regular basis anyway, and that's a ruby-throated hummingbird. I'll show you a likeness of it in just a little bit. This innovative type of feeder here, if you look carefully, and I don't know if you can see this, but if you look carefully, I took a rake. It's like a garden rake, and the handle had been broken off of it. I just took the garden rake, nailed it into the side of a tree, and you can take half apples or half oranges and just place it on the little spines there of the rake, the tines of the rake, and it will bring in all sorts of birds here. You know, mockingbirds or even orioles. All right, and you may also wish to build a birdhouse, and this is a bluebird house. I build 3 or 4 of these each year, put them up at my Blackwater property, or at my home property. I never buy any wood. All the wood that I buy, all the wood that I get, I just pick it up off the side of the road when I'm walking through my subdivision, and I just find, pieces of wood that people have thrown out, and I make the birdhouses in that fashion right here. You can find the directions on how to make these. Got to get the opening here 1.5, I think it's 1.5 inches in width there, and it just all sorts of dimensions on that, but they're rather easy to make. Now, one of the problems that you have when you have birds and you're feeding the birds, you will always get squirrels. And squirrels can be an aggravation. Aggravation in many, many ways. I consider them to be pests, not pets, pests. And I don't appreciate having the squirrels around. So anyway, the squirrels will always come up. They'll get your sunflower seed or get your cracked corn. And so it's tough to deal with that, And some people like to look at squirrels, and that's fine if you want to do that. But what I do, and I don't recommend that you do this, but if you want to, that's fine. You can get a squirrel trap. I keep one of the squirrel traps regularly available there, and it will capture those squirrels. Unfortunately, it sometimes captures the birds. But it's very easy to release the birds, very easy to release the squirrels. And, of course, you don't want to release them back into your own yard. So you can do what you wish, but you can do like I do. And you can just think about who's somebody in your life that you don't care for very much. And you can just take that captured squirrel over to their yard and just let it go in their yard. No, I would never do that. But anyway, that's how you can take care of it. Now, this is what we're going to do here. I'm going to organize this and the birds into several groups. Permanent residents, and those are the birds, of course, that stay in your yard all year round. And then we have summer residents, then winter residents, and we have the migrants that pass through. And a lot of people think, that every bird you see in your yard, is there for 12 months out of the year, and that's just not the case here. The permanent residents, of course, they're there for 12 months out of the year. Summer residents, as the name implies, they're there only for the summer. So let's go through our birds here. And I'm going to start with a permanent resident. You probably recognize this bird. It's called a mockingbird. Now, all of these bird paintings here, illustrations, they're very simple paintings, and all of these came from this bird book here, A Golden Guide to Birds. Now, if I tried to use some of my other bird books, then they have 5 or 6 birds illustrated on each page, and I didn't want to do that. I just want to show you the individual ones. You can go back later if you wish to do so, read about the narrative there. But a beautiful bird here. Some of you may have read the book, To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a sin to kill a mockingbird. And beautiful, beautiful sounds, music there. People call them mockingbirds because they mimic other birds, and that is true with that. You will not get them to come to your feeders, except maybe if you have the orange slices or something like that. All right, we move on to another common bird. They will occasionally come to your feeders, to your cracked corn. This is a blue jay. There are many, many varieties of jays in this country, and this one is the blue jay. It's one that's common to our area. Quite an intelligent bird. Here's another one that will come to your feeders. They like the sunflower seeds. This is the cardinal, and this is the male cardinal. The females generally have a little bit duller appearance. This aids in their camouflage, hiding them when they're nesting. Beautiful birds. I used to band birds for the Fish and Wildlife Service, and I banded many of these cardinals here, and they will give you a nice little pinch with their beaks. Here's another one. This bird will not come to your feeder. You might get it to come to the orange slices and the apple slices there, but it's the eastern bluebird. I can remember 40 years ago, there was a scarcity of bluebirds, and people got on a bluebird building project, and of course that's allowed them to be quite successful in their recovery. Another bird here, one of my favorites, and this bird is a brown thrasher. And looks kind of like a mockingbird, except it's brown. The sounds that it makes are very similar to that of a mockingbird. Very gentle. Sometimes I get these into my feeders, or I should say into my traps, and have to release them, but they're not harmful by any means. A lot of people are scared of birds, but I learned in all my years of bird banding, that most birds, they'll give you a little pinch, but they're mainly just scared and just trying to get away from you. One of my favorite birds is Carolina chickadee. If you look at the caption here, it says black-capped chickadee. We have in our country a number of varieties of chickadees. We have, where we live anyway, the only one is Carolina chickadee. And if you go to the northern parts of the United States, or even up in the Smoky Mountains, high in the Smoky Mountains, you can find a black-capped chickadee. A beautiful bird. It kind of looks like a little bandit there, but I love to see them at my feeders. And closely related to the chickadee is the tufted titmouse. And we have a number of varieties of titmouse. And titmouses in our country, but the one that we have here in the southeast is that tufted titmouse. And you can hear them, very, very common. They stay here year round, and I like them. Love to band those too. Here's a white-breasted nuthatch. These will come to your sunflower feeders. I like them quite a bit. We also have several other varieties of nuthatches. The brown-headed nuthatch is found here in Walker County, and not common, but it is present here. Another favorite of mine is the rufous-sided towhee. That's what it looks like. Very weak flower. You always find it close to the ground. Now, if you look at this bird is the male species. You can see the black here. You see the black here. And the female is brown. Where the male here has black, the female has brown. And I guarantee you that if you find a male towhee, you will find a female close by. They are always in partnership with that. They do a little call called towhee, towhee. All right. And here's another one. This is not a very good illustration, but I can remember in my early birding, you just did not find house finches in Alabama. They just weren't. And then now they're very common. It's a bird that looks kind of like a sparrow, but it's a finch. Has a lot of red on the head, and not completely red, but reddish coloration on the head and on the back. You can just about count on it. If you have ferns around on your porch, the house finch will nest in those ferns. All right, another bird here, and this, if you look at the label, it says house wren. I doubt you'll find house wrens in your yard. You might find them. Some they're more common in some places than others. What we have in Walker County, we have the Carolina wren. And up here in the eye area, if you see a white stripe that runs through the eye, I can't get it exactly right, but the white stripe there, that's a Carolina wren. And a variety of songs here. You'll find them if you have ferns again, or house plants, or anything, bonnets, hats, they'll form their nest in there. And I always like them. The male species here of the Carolina wren will very often build 5 to 6 to 7 what they call dummy nests, and trying to entice a female to select one of those. She never does. She always selects her own. All right. Common bird here, which is not native to our area. It was introduced from Europe. We give it the name house sparrow. It is not a sparrow by any means. It's a weaver finch is what it actually is. They can be a little bit of a pest. During my walk this morning, I saw in downtown Jasper, I saw a number of these. The one you're looking at here is the male. The male has the black here under the head, under the chin, and the female does not. Another bird that we had that was introduced from Europe is the starling. Fortunately, I don't have many starlings in my yard, and I'm happy with that. Kind of dominate your feeders here, but you can find them in the downtown areas. All right, now this bird I'm showing to you is not common. I mean, it's not rare, but it's not common. It's called the yellow-shafted flicker. Some people call them yellow hammers. It's the Alabama state bird. I can find them in my neighborhood. If you know what you're listening for, know where to look, you can find the flicker. But they're not a really, really common bird. You can hear their sound. It's like a flicker, 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 flicker. But anyway, it's a pretty bird. It's called a yellow-shafted flicker. If you look down on the wings here, tail feathers, you can see the yellow shafts there to the feathers there. All right, another woodpecker that we have in our area is the red-headed woodpecker. Another one of my favorites. You don't see them every day, and you won't find them at your feeders, but They are here. A very beautiful bird. I love it. Now, I didn't have a photograph in this field guide that I showed you a while ago of the red-bellied woodpecker, but that is one that you'll find in your yard, and sometimes you'll find it in your feeders too. So anyway, that's a red-bellied woodpecker. It has a little bit of red on the head, and they call it red-bellied, but there's no red on the belly. It's more of a pinkish coloration here. Now, the woodpecker that you will find probably most common at your feeders, and it's not common at the feeders, is a downy woodpecker. And notice there, look at the back of it. It's called a ladderback woodpecker. And anyway, they're rather common here. Most of the time when you hear the woodpecker tapping on the trees close by, this is what it is right here. All right, so let's move on into some of our summer birds away from our permanent residents. And one of the common summer birds is that of the ruby-throated hummingbird. And as I mentioned to you earlier, this is our only hummingbird that is native to Alabama. Occasionally we may find a couple of other stragglers from the west that pass through, but your likelihood of seeing one is very, very rare. Very territorial. Put up your hummingbird feeders there, and you'll catch them as they pass through. Some of them stay here during the summer months. And then, put your hummingbird feeders up back in July and August, and you will just see territorial wars to take place with these ruby-throated hummingbirds. All right, another migratory bird, I should say summer bird, is that of the indigo bunny. Not to be confused with a bluebird. It's much smaller than a bluebird. You probably will not see one of these. The female species is brown, where the male has the blue, the female has brown. But you occasionally see them in your yard. You occasionally see them in a feeder. All right. One of my favorite birds, which is a summer bird, is catbird. This is it. Notice the reddish coloration. This area is called the chrism. It's right in the tail area there. You probably will never even see that, and because the catbird doesn't show it very much, but they give it the name catbird, because that's the call that it makes. It sounds like a cat mewing, but I like them very, very much. Looks kind of like a mockingbird. Notice there are no wing bars. There's no striping here. So it is definitely not a mockingbird. If you're around water, you can put up some purple martin houses if you wish to do so. But this is purple martin. Unless you have a pond nearby, you probably will not have these at your house. If you go out to the county lake, or if you're out at the Smith Lake, you'll certainly see purple martins. They are summer birds. All right, now let's go to the winter birds, and one of my favorites is that of the slate-colored junco. I think properly today it's officially known as a dark-eyed junco. Large variety of the juncos, particularly if you go out west, and it looks like there's variations here, even in Alabama, But these are a winter bird. They're ground feeders, so if you throw out the cracked corn, you will have these birds, and they will be quite common during the winter months. I like this little bird. All right. Here's a bird. I organized this as a winter bird. It's a goldfinch, American goldfinch. And you can find them throughout the year, but you'll see them most commonly in the winter. Now, the plumage that you're looking at on the bird here, which is the yellow plumage of this male, indicates that it's in the breeding time of the season. But when you see them in the winter months, they're usually a lot less yellow. It kind of dulls out into a greenish brown coloration. All right, now the photograph I'm going to show you here now is not a good photograph. But this is, I've got some photographs clinging together. This is a purple finch. You'll find it only in the winter months. It's a rather large finch. You'll see them at your sunflower seed feeders, and it has a much greater red on it and purple on it than what you're seeing here on this bird. It looks a little bit like a house finch, but the purple, the reddish coloration is a lot more pronounced there. And I like this way. It's one of my favorite winter birds. All right, now another winter bird, going back to the woodpeckers, is this yellow-bellied sapsucker. Did I get one picture here? Yeah, yellow-bellied sapsucker. I only find them in the winter months. And has a reddish coloration for the western counterpart to this. It's known as the red-bellied sapsucker. All right, and here's another one, and this is a little bit confusing here. Here's some sparrows, and we have year-round the chipping sparrow. Tiny little sparrow. It's one of my favorites. It will come to your feeder. And it shows you on here that this is a white crown sparrow. And you might find one of those in Jasper, Alabama. And I've seen them here before, but they are not common whatsoever. This is a yellow crown sparrow here. Yellow-throated sparrow. White-throated sparrow. I'm sorry here. And there is a yellow crown sparrow too. But this is a white-throated sparrow. This is one that we have. Very common in the winter months. In fact, as I'm doing this presentation here, it is the 5th of April, and we still have white-throated sparrows here that are still here, waiting to migrate to the northern states or into southern Canada. Anyway, all right, as we move into some of the migratory species, one of my favorites, and I am telling you that they're already in Alabama now. They will pass through Walker County in the around the 7th through about the 14th of April, and they probably even breed in Alabama, but your likelihood of finding one of those nests of the rose-breasted grosbeak is very, very unlikely. Now, this is the male here. Unmistakable. You can see the rose-breasted, a lot of black here and that. Now, the female is not that coloration. She's more of a brownish coloration. Very beautiful bird. And if you'll wait into late September, October, they will pass back through Walker County. And if you have your sunflower seeds out, they will definitely stop at your feeders here. Another bird that we have is a robin, which the robin is a yearly resident, a permanent resident. You just don't see them very often. They're here, but you don't see them very often unless they're on migration. And they were passing through Walker County back in March, which was last month, and they were just, every yard you would walk by, would have 15, 20, 25 robins that would be present there. All right, and it's kind of a neat bird. All right, so that kind of wraps up the presentation here. I want to show you something here. If you get into birds, I'm sure that you'll want to track your bird list, and you don't have to have a bird list like this. It's very extensive. I've been using this one for years and years, where I always record the species, where I saw the species, whatever, and but you probably want to have something. Keep a little scrap of paper and just identify those birds that you see. And of course, when these backyard birds, if you can get 25 or 30 of those birds, you're probably doing pretty good with that too. I didn't give this presentation trying to make you John James Audubon or get you qualified enough that you can participate in a big year. But anyway, it kind of is a challenge to you. I'm not bragging on myself here, but if you look at my birds here, in the course of my 50 years of birding, I've been able to put together, identify 506 species, and this is 506 species in the United States, to include Alaska and to include Hawaii. Likewise here, most people don't get anywhere close to that. So if you have a local list that has 30 birds on it, be proud of that. Honestly, be proud of it, But I've also done quite a bit of birding in Europe. I've got a nice list there of about 100 and 125 birds. You don't find as many birds in Europe, different species of birds, as you have here. And of course, you can take your birding experience and go down to Latin America, South America, and it's just a multitude of birds that are found there, much more abundant than what you find, here in the Southeast. But again, I encourage you to take this up as a habit, or at least be aware of that. And, if you get into the birding habit, it makes you aware of your surroundings and those things that are around us that other people just don't see, honestly, And that's one of the things that biologists develop. They develop this sense of observation where you see things that others don't. You're living in a world that other people are not living in. And I don't mean that facetiously, but I mean you see the things that other people do not. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this presentation on birds. A very rewarding experience. Alrighty, thank you very much.